Eddie, before we come on to Crystal Palace, I want to ask you first about Sandro Tonali and clearly a difficult situation. First off, is he with you, and do you expect him to be available for selection this weekend?
Yeah, he's very much with us. I think he trained twice this week with us. And yeah, no, he's very much available for selection. Like I do with all the players, analysing their training performances, how they look, how they feel. And Sandro's trained well with us.
Do you feel that he's in the right frame of mind to play if you select him?
He's had a very, very difficult couple of weeks. He's been dealing with a lot, and from what I can see, I see him for a few hours a day. From what I can see, he's handling himself really well, and he's dealing with his emotions incredibly strongly. But underneath that, I'm sure there's a lot going on. So I'll have to make a call. But always, I have to bring it back to football. I have to bring it back to his training performances and what he's delivering on the training pitch, and then try and make the best decision for the team.
There was a statement from the club about the situation a few days ago, and within that, it was said that you are supporting him and his family. And can you tell us a bit about the support you've been giving him and why it's important that you continue to do so, whatever happens next?
For me, it's absolutely crucial. It's the most important part of this whole incident is Sandro and his welfare. And it's very easy for people to forget how young he is, the changes he's had in his life, coming from Italy to England. That's hard enough to deal with, and now he has, of course, this situation. So we feel as a football club, well, straight away, it was throw our arms around him and protect him and try and give him the love and support that he needs to find solutions to the problems that he's had. And that's what we're endeavouring to do with a lot of conversations, a lot of communication with him and his family, because it's not just Sandro, it's the people around him that are going to be so important to him as well. So it's been a big effort from us, and I have to say he's handled himself, as I said, superbly well. He's been obviously emotional, but handled himself with respect and dignity.
Last one from me on this. Do you have any indication at this stage when you might hear more and you'll know what his future is going to be?
Personally, no, I don't. The other people dealing with that maybe have a better idea. But for me, my focus has been on Sandro himself and the training this week.
West Ham, before the international break, you were without a few players. One of them, Joe Linton, who's had a couple of injury issues this season. Is he going to be back for you this weekend?
I hope so. He's trained well. He's looked good. He's done a lot of work. So I'm confident, as of I sit here now, that he's going to be okay, and hopefully a return to the form that we know he can produce. A huge player for us. As you say, we did have a few injuries. Not everything's cleared up, and we're not in perfect order, but certainly look a little bit better.
What about Alexander Isak? Because he came off towards the end of that match and then was sent back from international duty with Sweden.
Yeah, Alex hasn't trained with us yet, so he's going to leave it late to see if he's fit and available.
And Crystal Palace, you are going into the weekend side by side in the table, and they've got quite a few injuries. They also lost Wilfried Zaha in the summer, but it seems like they're going along quite nicely. What do you think their strengths are as a team?
Well, I think first, Roy's done an incredible job going back there in a difficult moment for the team. He brought, again, stability to the football club, as he does everywhere he manages. He brings organisation and a real structure to their play. Very, very difficult team to play against, difficult team to score against this year. Defensively, I think they've been very good. I think they've got, yes, they don't have Zaha now, but they still have very dangerous players and players that can hurt you on transitions, and they've got some real threats. So I think we can't underestimate the challenge, and we can't get blindsided by other distractions for us. This game's going to be hard enough, so all our focus now is on our training and our preparation for the game.
And lastly, you've just come back from another international break. There is another one in 4 weeks' time, but it's going to be another busy and intense period for you, isn't it? Because you're playing games in 3 different competitions once again.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be. It's strange now looking back to last year and feeling that was intense, and then you come into this period, which really is a different level. But it's something we enjoyed in the last period, and the team performed really well. So I think, hopefully, if we can continue to set our standards very high, we can continue our good form.
Keith?
Hi Eddie. Did the news on Sandro, did it come as a surprise to the club? You're saying that obviously it's been a difficult couple of weeks for him. I'm guessing that's when you maybe first knew about the situation.
Yeah, so I got a phone call from Dan Ashworth. I can't remember what day it was, but during the international break, and a total surprise to me, to him, to everybody. But these are the things when you're in this job and in this role that can happen. And as I said, my immediate thought process was for Sandro and just making sure he was okay. So yeah, very, very difficult period really.
I guess as a manager, you've got lots of challenges thrown your way. Is this a new one for you to deal with?
Just trying to think back. I think it probably is. Yeah, I think it's as you say. There's so many different things with people's personal lives that can happen. Footballers are human beings, and to look at them anything other is wrong. They can have, and we all have as humans, vulnerabilities, weaknesses, and things that happen in our lives that that can be difficult. So the main thing is, if we identify it and then support the player and try and, as we'll always do, try and help them get to their best level on the football pitch.
You mentioned Sandro being young, and I think people forget that because obviously he's been captain over in AC Milan. Was he 23 years old? Do you think with gambling as a whole there perhaps needs to be more education for young players coming through, what they can do, what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do? Because we've seen a number of cases in recent times, Ivan Toney obviously being the most high profile one.
Yeah, I think education is always, I think, the most important thing. It's in the academies, getting that information through to the players and developing good habits in your life. I think is so important as a professional athlete, trying to get as many good habits as you can to give yourself the best chance to have the longer career as possible. And certainly as a football club, that's our duty to do that.
And just finally for me on that topic, is there a concern from the club that perhaps AC Milan knew about this before Sandro arrived here in the summer?
Keith, that's something I can't comment on.
Okay.
I've got no idea. My thought process is all about Sandro and just trying to help him.
Yeah. In terms of the midfield department, if you were to lose him, or we obviously don't know what's going to happen there, but I guess you'll be boosted. You mentioned Joe Linton there, and there's Joe Willock as well. You've got players to come back in that position. Yeah,
we've got players to come back in, and the emergence of Elliot Anderson in that position as well has been brilliant, and Louis Miley as well during pre-season was outstanding. So we do have players that can step up and perform really well at this level. But I think the depth is always going to be an issue if you lose one of those players from that unit. But that's something we'll have to assess the more we know.
I spoke to Anthony Gordon yesterday. He's obviously had the international break, a chance to maybe have a little bit of time, given the fact he got no break at all in the summer, and he had that extra week of obviously having missed the West Ham game suspended. How good will it be to have him back raring to go again?
Yeah, it will be. I think Anthony's been magnificent this season. I think his game's gone to another level. I think it's well documented. I think he said it, his fitness levels have gone to another level as well. I think we saw that from the first day of pre-season with us, where he performed really well in our testing, and he's had a real determination, I think, to do well. And he's been consistent. Losing him for the suspension was a big blow for us because of his consistent form. And he's just become a dad for the first time. So he's had a lot happen in his life in a short period of time, but I think he's in a really good place.
And an exciting week ahead, not just with Crystal Palace on Saturday, but another huge game next week at St James's Park, and everything that came with that PSG game. It was just an amazing spectacle. Of course, you'll be desperate for it to be another top week, won't you?
Yeah, I think we are, but we just have to look at Crystal Palace. As I sit here now, there's no point looking ahead to the week after. It's about this game, and this game's hard enough. So we don't underestimate Crystal Palace and the threats that they bring. And if we do have an eye on a future game or something that's ahead of us, that's where we'll come into trouble. So it's very much on Palace.
Thanks, Eddie.
Andy? Well, Eddie, obviously there are quite a few players away on international duty, but how important has the international break for the others to rest mentally rather than physically after that incredibly emotional but incredibly intense last week before the international break?
Yeah, I think it's a balance for me. rest is a very dangerous word because that gives connotations that everyone sat there chilling out, and that's never the case. So a little bit of rest or a little bit of downtime where the players can switch off, and I think that's the important thing. They mentally don't think about football for a couple of days and then they're back to it and we've worked hard again. So the balance is key. I think with the amount of games we have, it's the constant mental load that we have to be aware of. So that's something that we're trying to juggle. Because certainly during the first half against West Ham, we looked like we were fatigued mentally, maybe more than physically, because physically in the second half we gave a really good display. So certainly something for us to think about.
How is, you mentioned him before, Joe Willock doing in his return? Because I imagine he's absolutely champing at the bit to get back, but you're probably urging a little bit of caution, bearing in mind the difficult period that he's had with injuries.
No, I'm the same as Joe. I want him back. But yeah, of course we have to do it sensibly. He's trained this week for the first time back with the group. Probably a bit early for him to be involved in the matchday squad, but he's getting closer, and he's a huge player for us.
Obviously the big news came out of the international break about Bruno and a new contract which had been rumoured for quite a long while. There was that beautiful kind of moment with his dad, the video of it was released. How important do you think that is, that kind of super relationship he shares with his father, and how does that translate across to his football, do you think?
Well, I think it's like talking earlier about players and their families. I think that those supports you have, those relationships you have with, whether it's your dad, your mum, or whoever it is in your life, is so important, because these are the people that you turn to when you need advice, guidance. So to have really good role models is hugely important, and also supportive people that give you positive outcomes. You can be in a down moment, you need lifting. You can be in a good moment, you need calming down. And I think Bruno's relationship with his dad especially is a huge part of his life.
There's been a few contract signings recently. How important has it been just to get the nucleus of this squad, but most importantly, keep the nucleus of this squad going forward?
Well, for me, it's always been the most important thing. Before you talk about new players and adding to the group, it's about keeping your best players. It is fundamentally important, because recruitment is, as I've always said, is so difficult and gets harder. So keeping your best players is always, for me, the starting point. If we can do that, if we can create an environment where our players are happy, they're enjoying their football, they feel like they're still progressing their careers, that means a lot to us.
And just finally from me on Crystal Palace, obviously there were 3 stalemates last season, take goals in the last 3. How confident are you that we won't see a stalemate come tomorrow?
Well, yeah, they're 3 interesting games. Maybe not so much for you guys, but for us it was really, really tight games, and I think that should serve us well really going into this game, because there's nothing's given, and whenever you play Crystal Palace you have to earn the win. They've been very resolute. Last season the games were tight, but there should be an interesting spectacle.
Thanks, Eddie.
Andrew?
Eddie, going back to Sandro, Newcastle are famous for getting to know the players before they sign them. You always do your due diligence and understand the characteristics of those players before you take them on. So how frustrating is it for you that this was in his background and yet the club didn't know?
I think that's a very difficult one. I think, from our side, Sandro is a top person, top character. I've got no doubts on him as a person at all. But like any of us sat in the stream, you don't know everything about every person. It's impossible to know. But it's our job now, as I said earlier, to support him and help him and get him to his best level on the pitch.
Bruno Guimaraes, 1 game away from a suspension, 1 booking away, I should say. But it's in his game, isn't it, that because he's in the engine of the midfield, how do you rein him in? Because, he will be, presumably he will get that 5th booking quite soon. How do you rein him in, or do you try and stop him from getting those yellow cards?
I think it's like any player. I think reining him in, maybe not, because I think you're going to take something away from his natural game. It's the bookings that are needless that you want to try and take out of our games. I think the rules now mean there will be more yellow cards. So the referees definitely tightened up in the summer in terms of, discipline and time wasting and loads of little things to the game. You can now pick up some of our players have picked up a yellow card for nothing, or perceived nothing. So more yellow cards means more suspensions. So we have to be careful. But certainly I don't want to be taking aggression out of anyone's game. It's the indisciplined ones that we want to try and eradicate.
Sven Botman, how is he? Because he's been injured.
Yeah, Sven's improving. The 2 weeks has been good for him.
Thank you.
Simon?
Eddie, has the club already got in place a package of support for Sandro, such as counselling, and do you know what that might look like?
Yeah, we've got measures in place to help him in conjunction with Sandro and his representatives and his family. So those processes have started.
You touched on it, but it's interesting that there'll be 50,000+ people there, as there always is tomorrow, and for them looking at the players on the pitch, sometimes they don't seem like the same as they are in the crowd, but this is kind of a reminder that everyone is human.
Everyone is human and everyone will make mistakes. That's part of human beings and time. And I think the big thing for us is to try and, as I've said many times, I'm going to repeat myself, but is to support, educate, help. And as a football club, that's our duty to protect all our players. That's what we'll do with Sandro.
Okay. Tim?
Eddie, just on Sandro there, there's obviously a close relationship between football and gambling, and this club has 3 betting partners. Is that a concern for you?
That's not, again, I think that's a difficult one for me to comment on. My job is to coach the team, manage the team, and that's what I'll do. And I think it's probably best that I stick to those subjects.
And just, you talked about the players' welfare away from the training ground. You only see them for a couple of hours a day. How important is that pastoral role, or how difficult is it to maintain that sort of pastoral role?
Well, I think when the players are here, we can do everything we can to try and look after them, make sure they're dealing with the strains that being a professional footballer can entail in some of the pitfalls that are there, try and help them and educate them. But you certainly can't live their lives for them, that's impossible. But you want to, I think the big thing for me and my role is that I want to be there as someone that they can talk to and they can come to in times of difficulty. Someone that they know that they'll get total impartiality, trust, and we can hopefully navigate through the problem together. I think that's the relationship that I need with all of my players. Now some you may have stronger relationships with others, that's just natural. But I'd like to think that between me and the coaching team we can fulfil those roles. But then when they go home, that's where we're talking about Bruno's dad, and those family relationships and relationships with their agents and family and friends are even more important, because hopefully they can also help the players in difficult times.
Okay. Simon Bird, then Louise Taylor. Simon?
Hi, on Sandro, you rightly supported Sandro on a human level, but is there, on a business level, is there an anger inside the club that you've invested £52 million on a person whose agent sent you to gambling addict now? I mean, it's like quite an embarrassing situation for the club to have signed.
No, I don't think so. I don't think we can look at it like that. Of course, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but we can't play that game. We have to make a decision based on football, signing the players that we think can make the team better, and that's what we've done. No, I don't think there's anger from the club. I think there's an understanding of the situation we're in, and now we have to make a really tough situation the best we can. We have to try and navigate our way out of it and support Sandro and get him back to playing football.
If he's banned, how will you cope with that as a club? Will you have to sign someone else, or lots of other issues?
It's too early to say. I think we'll make a decision based on the facts that we have.
Okay. Louise?
Hi Eddie, you're sitting in front of an advertising hoarding promoting a gambling company, Fun 88, which is one of 3 betting sponsors. How does that sit with you? And do you think gambling advertising should be removed from football, as is increasingly happening in Italy, Spain?
As I said earlier, they're not decisions that I make, and I'm not going to be drawn into comments about things that I'm not in control of.
And what has the conversations been like? I'm sure that in Saudi Arabia they're not very happy about this situation, because obviously it's potentially a huge loss of face and a feeling that maybe they've been tricked somewhere along the line. I mean, have there been awkward conversations behind the scenes?
No.
Jordan?
Just on the Tonali situation, has it impacted your preparations at all?
No, obviously my time has been spent in certain phone calls, and attention has been taken to the obviously the important issues. But in terms of the training and preparing the team, no. I always try to make that my one of my main priorities. So it's been a challenging couple of weeks, but nothing that I haven't faced before in football.
And have you felt the need to address the squad since the return from the national?
Well, I've addressed the squad on football,
Yeah.
as I do every day, but in terms of talking about an individual player, no, that's not something I tend to do unless I feel the need to do it with the squad. I've faced many situations like this, maybe not directly similar to this, but like this, where I would always think long and hard about what I do when interacting with the whole squad. I think the squad have really rallied around Sandro and really supported him, and that's been great to see. He's a very popular member of the dressing room, and I think everyone's main thoughts are just caring for him and making sure he's okay.
Lee?
Eddie, can this situation ignite the crowd in a good way, perhaps, against Crystal Palace? Because I'm sure the first time Tonali gets a ball, if he plays it close or puts a tackle in, has a shot, it's just going to lift the place up because the fans have been supportive.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I think that would be Sandro's wish. I think that would be our wish. Everyone connected with Newcastle, it makes us stronger together, and it makes us more united and tighter in protecting someone, helping someone who's in a difficult situation. I think that's what internally, that's what we pride ourselves on, and then externally, you just hope the crowd, well, I know the crowd will support Sandro. I've got no doubt about that, and I'd encourage them to show him love because he needs it at this moment.
Just go back to that West Ham game, Dan Burn afterwards saying about the 89th minute equaliser, that the next step for Newcastle is to perhaps be like a City or Liverpool where they hold on in that situation. Is that pretty much where you see the team's mentality is at the minute?
Yeah, I think the intention, of course, was there to do that. I didn't see a goal coming in that moment. I thought we looked comfortable. It was only when the goal came that then, of course, the home crowd got in the game and we could have lost the game in the end. Yeah, but even those teams have moments where they let leads slip. So it's part of our journey, I think. But we were frustrated after the game because we felt that game, based on the second half performance, it should have been ours.
Just finally on another 3-game week ahead, it's tough, but it's also exciting for the football club.
Well, yeah, the definite excitement is the overriding emotion. I think it has to be. It's tough. We're playing football. We're playing games. We're doing the thing that we love to do. So got no issue there. It's just obviously demanding, but really exciting, especially after the last group of games. The position that we're in. Let's not forget that the team have done unbelievably well to get us back into this position following the previous international break where we had the 3 defeats together. So it was a brilliant response, and now we go into another really congested fixture period where if we can continue that momentum, we'll be in a great place.
Cheers. Luke?
Morning. Quite a difficult press conference today, but some more on Sandro Tonali. What does his mid-term, long-term future at Newcastle United look like now?
Well, same as it was before. There's no difference. I think that there's different ways to look at this. So he currently is adapting to a huge change in his life from Italy to England. The change in football is it's a real one. You know, the English game is very, very intense and it is different. So he's adapting, and I think he's improving. Recent performances have been very good, but there's loads more to come. So his short term is that he will continue to adapt. We'll see what happens outside of the pitch, but nothing changes. Our aim is to try and help him get to improve aspects of his game and get to his best level, and I'm very, very confident he'll get there and be an outstanding player for us.
There's no denying he was your star signing, your big summer signing. We already knew this season was going to be tougher. How much harder is this going to make it for you?
Well, football's never easy, and there's always challenges. There's always things put in front of you that make it more difficult, and this is just one of them that we have to try and navigate our way around and come back stronger.
When you have a week like this and you look at someone like Roy Hodgson in the opposition dugout, can you see yourself managing as long as he does?
As I sit here now, I'd say absolutely no chance, but full credit to Roy for what he's doing and how he's doing it, and having the motivation to keep going and keep putting himself out there and doing what he does. I've got to say he does it very, very well, and he's I'm a huge admirer of his, have been for many years. So full credit to him. But for me, I hope not.
Craig and then Oscar.
Morning, Eddie. You've obviously spoken to Sandro. Has he indicated he wants this dealt with quickly?
We've not discussed things like that, in terms of time, and we've discussed deeper issues than, the speed of, what will happen.
Has he? We spoke to him in Milan, and he spoke then about the problems he had adapting. He said he felt lost during his early weeks here. Now this has come along. Has he indicated to you, once he does serve what is likely to be a lengthy ban, does he want a future here?
But that's not even been discussed, because that's a yes. That's a yes on both sides. It's a yes from us. We're going to support him and back him. We see him being part of our team for many, many years. And I know that's the same back from his side to us. So again, some things you don't have to, I feel you don't have to say. We are committed to him long term.
Where does the club stand on this? Because you're going to pay, Newcastle are going to pay for something which happened not on your watch, beyond your control. Is that fair?
Again, Craig, I think that's a difficult one for me to comment on. That's probably for, one for Dan and people above me to answer.
Do you expect legal action on the back of this?
Again, I don't know. I'm not involved in those conversations.
Oscar?
Eddie, given this was clearly always on the horizon, would you expect a potential signing to tell you about this before signing a contract?
Yeah, I'm not going to go there and answer that question.
But would you have entertained signing a player who potentially faced a lengthy ban?
As I said, hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? I can't act in hindsight. We're acting on seeing the player play, loving what he did on the football pitch and wanting to sign him.
There's not an element of you and the club being let down, though?
No, I don't think. I don't deal with those emotions. I deal with the problem and then try and find a solution.
Martin, when was the first time you saw Sandro after everything came to light, and was it 1-1, and was he very emotional when you did see him?
Yeah, so we had a conversation on the phone, and then again, I can't remember, Martin, sorry, the day that I saw him. But yeah, it was emotional, because he's a young lad in a very difficult moment, in a difficult situation. And, when you see things behind, this arena, you have a totally different perception of events. I understand as the media's perception of events. I see the person, and I see the human, and I see the pain and the distress. So that's a very, very different way of seeing the same situation. And that's why my thoughts are always with the player and making sure that we look after him.
Does he love the game, and is he devastated by what's happened to him?
Absolutely, he loves the game. And he's absolutely devastated. And his thoughts are with Newcastle, and his thoughts are with us, the team, and all those emotions, our thoughts are with him. So hopefully between us we can make it work.
And obviously we're kind of looking at a potential ban. Has he managed to get his head around that at this point, or are you trying to help him?
I think it's too early to talk about things that we don't know.
George?
Hi, Eddie. Hi, Eddie.
Hi.
Obviously, addiction is an illness, but has he expressed regret to you about the position he's left?
Yeah. As I said, those conversations I think probably be better to stay between me and him. But I think it's important that I get sort of his emotions out to everybody. Yes, and as I said, his thoughts are about the team and about Newcastle and about the situation that the team and the club find themselves in. So that's why I say he's a top lad. He's a top character. His thoughts are with us. Our thoughts are with him, and it's a very difficult situation.
Okay, Dominic?
Just in regard to footballers betting on football in general, you mentioned the sort of human element to it. Do you feel the current process of imposing lengthy bans, as you saw with Ivan Toney, is the best way to combat this?
Without really analysing it and going deep to it, again, I don't really want to answer that. I don't think I'm an expert on what the punishment should be for players.
This week the club confirmed the appointment of a new head of psychology. How important will that be for all players, but Sandro in particular, navigating this difficult time?
Yeah, I think that's part of what we need to do, and it's something that we as I said, we take seriously our role in trying to help players. Now, this appointment has been in in the pipeline for a long, long time. It's been something that we've been keen to add to our services, not just for the first team, but for the whole football club, ladies team, academy, staff. So I think it's a big moment for us.
Mark? Eddie, there's been so much speculation in Italy about exactly what Sandro's done, exactly what he's betted on, things like that. Does the club know, has he told you exactly what's happened, and do you know has he told you exactly what's happened? It's not really been ascertained yet exactly where he's done.
Yeah, I haven't had those conversations with him. I've tried to look at it purely from a psychological perspective and from a football level, but he's had those conversations with other people at the football club.
Has it been difficult for him to be the centre of a kind of media storm, in particular in Italy, where it feels like it's been front page?
I'm sure it's been incredibly difficult for him, and I think, again, when you consider how young he is, what's happened to his life in the last few months, he wouldn't want to be on the front pages for anything other than football. So I'm sure that's been a totally new experience for him.
And I think Lee mentioned it before, that there's been a history at this football club of supporters getting behind players who've maybe gone through difficult times. You mentioned you were confident that we're going to do it tomorrow, but do you think long term there's potential for him to kind of almost use this as kind of become a fan favourite, a fan hero somewhere down the road?
Well, I think the only way he can do that is by what he shows on the pitch, what he can, by showing his commitment, by showing his love and passion for Newcastle, and then the supporters then will back that and return that love unconditionally, I'm sure. So that's all he can do. But I know the supporters, I'm sure they will throw their arms around him when he next plays.
Last couple to finish, Kieran and then Scott.
Eddie, has Sandro addressed the group?
No.
And we know how connected and embedded he was at Milan. Do you think the support he's had this week has almost helped him feel even more at home here in a way?
Well, I'm sure our actions and our, not just myself, but everyone connected with the club, the supporters, media, etc. This is an opportunity for us to really look after him and show him the support. I think actions always speak louder than words, so it's what we do. We'll hopefully embed him into the football club even more.
Is he a strong character?
Yeah, I think he is. He's got that, for what he achieved in his footballing career and the clubs that he's played for, it wouldn't be a strong character. If he wasn't a strong character, he couldn't have got to where he is. But also in my dealings with him, and although it's been a really short period of time, he's not necessarily an extrovert. He's quite quiet and contained in terms of how he conducts himself, but you see the determination to do well, and you see a real focus on his short-term goals. So I'd love to think he can handle this, and I don't say that flippantly because he's got a lot to take in and he's got a lot to go through, but I see the strength within him to deal with it.
Scott to finish.
Absolute last one on Sandro. I fully understand why you as head coach say my focus is on the player and protecting him and looking after him and everything. So is it fair to say that there's almost a twin track approach here where other people at the club, whether it's Dan, whether it's Darren or whatever, are looking at more of the legal side, more of what's actually gone on here? Because I think externally there'd be a surprise if no one at the club was taking that on board, and I accept it's probably not you, but is somebody doing that?
I'm sure the club will be doing what the club needs to do, but from my side, as I say, I can't comment on that because I'm not party to the conversations. My conversations are with Sandro, his representatives, and trying to help him.
And you in the players that we talked about as part of the midfield mix, you referenced Lewis Miley before. I mean, where are we at with him? Because obviously he kind of appeared on the scene, if you like, and had that great game at Chelsea at the end of last season. We haven't seen an awful lot of him this season. I mean, is he ready to play regular first team football, or is he not there yet?
Well, not currently, because he's got glandular fever, so he's currently resting from that. I think he's probably a couple of weeks into what we think will be 4 weeks of lower physical exertion, but then hopefully we can build him up. So that's a real blow for us and for him, because he's a real talent. But I think at such a young age we have to nurse him through this.
If that hadn't happened though, if he had been training fully all season, do you envisage that he's at a point in his broader development where he is knocking on that door?
He'd certainly been in and around the squad. Well, he was before the illness. So he's a player that we really like.